And as South African households grapple with mounting debts, many are feeling the strain of financial pressure. Reports now indicate that a growing number of families are struggling to manage their expenses as well as meet their financial obligations. Let's now delve into the factors that are actually contributing to this debt crisis and explore some practical steps that individuals can actually undertake in order to regain control of their finances. Well, to further unpack this, let's extend a very warm welcome to Ms. Lulekwa Mengcane from the Council of Debt Collectors. Lulekwa, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time today. So besides the usual excuse of high unemployment rates in the country narrative, what are some of the other core as well as key reasons that consumers are just so over-indebted here in South Africa?
Good afternoon, Alicia, and good afternoon to the listeners. The families in South Africa are actually struggling to make ends meet. If you talk about just affording basic needs, and it's a problem. If you start mentioning the interest rate that are increasing, and as you have just said, the unemployment rate, that is also another problem, as well as the increasing unemployment rate that has been said in a few days in the news. And also the other thing that is beyond their control is they are facing scams that happen within their banks and all that, and that is actually affecting them adversely. We are dealing now with, as we are doing consumer education countrywide, we're in the Northern Cape today, and we find that a lot of people in most provinces are dealing with the scam of debt review. They are placed under debt review without consent, and unfortunately others don't even know what debt review or debt counseling is. So those are part of the pressures that people are actually facing, and they just find themselves under debt review. Then once you are under debt review, it's a problem because you do not understand that there's a court process that has taken place against your name. If you are married in community of property, obviously your spouse is also in debt review. And to take yourself out of debt review, then it's a struggle again, or is almost impossible.
So, Lulekwa, how can consumers then check to make sure that they've not been forced into this debt review process, as you've said, rightfully mentioned, so against their knowledge, because we do know it is quite a lengthy process that also involves the courts?
Sure. The main thing is that now, since debt review or debt counseling, as is well known, is regulated by the National Credit Regulator, so people can contact the National Credit Regulator, and they will be assisted and advised for free of charge. Because as we are regulators regulating in the credit space or in the debt space, people must not be afraid to ask or just to inquire or find some information or even assistance. So the National Credit Regulator can be contacted on 0860-627-67.
All right. So, Lulekwa, I mean, let's expand this conversation. I mean, we understand that a lot of people were saying that the COVID-19 pandemic also saw quite a massive jobs losses for essential workers, and the shift also in working from work in the office to home in some sectors has also contributed to the slow recovery of economic activity and having credit active consumers actually being able to service their debts on time. But are we not then dwelling on these reasons and not actually pointing out other real issues and factors like the overspending, as well as consumers living well beyond their means as well, in order to just keep up appearances at the forefront of these discussions?
For sure, because Alicia, you understand that within our communities, we never speak of money. And if we talk about a budget, that's the way we should start actually, to say, okay, let me track my spending patterns so that I can see where I'm wasting money or where I'm spending money, because those are the two different things that we do. And people should know that they need to negotiate with the creditors, because when we open our accounts or when we apply for credit, we go there with all the documents, all the requirements when we want to open accounts. And also the other thing that we miss out as consumers is that to afford to open an account or to obtain anything on credit doesn't automatically mean that I afford that. Because if you qualify, it doesn't mean that you afford automatically, because now with the repayments, it's a long process. It can be 24 months, it can be 36 months, depending on the contract or the credit agreement that you sign. So sometimes, really, I agree that sometimes we don't look at the overspending that we do, and the peer pressure as well. It's not only for school kids. That also adults, we have peer pressure that if my colleague is driving a Verpa and I must also have it, and I don't know the story behind that, the affordability, it becomes a problem.
Absolutely, Lulekwa. I mean, what can over-indebted consumers then do in order to manage or try, in this instance, to manage their budgets as well as debts, taking into account that their first point of defense will be, of course, Lulekwa, the high cost of living, and that they simply don't have enough to save to begin with. We also know that there are, of course, free bodies, like you mentioned earlier, like the NCR, which is the National Credit Regulator, that can actually assist in advising consumers about debt-related matters, for example. But is there enough education on these or awareness on these organizations as well as the services that they do provide to consumers so that these consumers can actually use the opportunities wisely?
We are doing a lot in terms of consumer education. As I mentioned that even now, we are busy with consumer education with educators in the Northern Cape. But now you find that our people are so scared of getting information. And information is key, unfortunately, because if you don't have the information and you won't know what you are entitled to, and you'll be shortchanged, obviously. So people must just start with the budget and know how, or be willing to learn how to do a budget. And they must also negotiate with their creditors should they feel or they know that they are not going to be able to honor the repayments. And how do you know that? You go back to the budget if you have a budget. But then if you don't have a budget, you won't know if you won't be able to honor the repayments of your creditors. And they should consider debt counseling, which is actually meant for over-indebted consumers, and it's a paid-for service. It's not something that somebody will pay your debts on your behalf with their money. So it's something that one also has to have education on that what is debt counseling when you get into it. And the second one is also debt consolidation. Debt consolidation can go through official banks. One can go to the bank and ask for.
All right, Lulekwa, unfortunately, I have to leave the interview there. Lulekwa, our line there is not a great one. I can hardly hear you there, but thank you so much for your input this afternoon. That was Lulekwa Mengcane on the ever-rising over-indebtedness of South African consumers.